Good morning on what's going to be an Arctic Air Friday. We're tracking this winter storm with significant icing, meaning sleet, freezing rain, snow combos coming to different parts of the Willamette Valley over the next 2 days. I'm meteorologist Rod Hill with Chris McGinness. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Any thoughts as we start?
Seems like we've been watching this for about 7 days.
A long time, tracking especially just where the boundary of the Arctic air was going to be.
And what is amazing to me is that 8 days ago it looked like, hey, there was going to be a pretty big push of Arctic air and maybe some snow coming in Friday night and Saturday. And of all the flipping and flopping back and forth between all the models and whatnot, the European model from last 8 days ago, so that's how many hours? 200 hours ago.
Yeah. It's kind of back to day one?
It's back to day one, as it did pretty well to say that here we are, 8 days later. We still don't know how much snow we're going to get, but we're pretty sure it's going to get really cold, and we're pretty sure there's about a 24-hour window of really nasty weather coming our way starting later tonight, early tomorrow. Let's
go ahead and show our viewers the temperatures right now, because this really highlights what I'm calling this morning the march of the Arctic air. Start up in the right corner, Spokane, 0. Pullman, hello Cougar Nation, 4 up there at Washington State. Seattle's at 20 with the current wind chill. I think when I looked, it was something like 5 above 0. And then Kelso's now below 0, 28. Portland's been holding steady last couple hours, but
to clarify, below 0 Celsius. If Kelso gets to 0, we're going to have problems.
Below freezing. Pardon me. Spokane 0. These are Fahrenheit temperatures. Thank you, Chris. Kelso 28, below freezing. Portland at 38 degrees, believing that we will eventually slip down and hit freezing before certainly the daylight hours come to an end. It's 7 out in Pendleton. It's 17 in the Dalles. So the Arctic March is certainly coming in. And you were saying you were noticing the east winds picking up earlier today out in the gorge.
Yeah,
as well.
And they're kind of following the temperatures, right? So Pendleton's down to 7, the Dalles down to 7. When we first went on the air at 4:30 this morning, Kelso was what, about 34?
Yeah, I think that's right.
So Kelso's dropped 6 degrees in the last 3 hours. The wind is now northerly there, so I mean you kind of get an idea of where the Arctic boundary is. It's basically somewhere between like Scappoose and St. Helens right now, and probably about ready to slip into Clark County. And then the Dalles, Hood River now, during the morning hours, Hood River has now gone to an easterly wind. In fact, what did I say? Lyle really quickly had a wind shift from late west winds to east winds at 40, and the temperature dropped 6 degrees. Lyle is now down to 20 degrees, which is just west of the Dalles. So the front right now, the Arctic front, is pretty well pushing through Hood River County, and it's probably about ready to make its way into eastern Multnomah County. So cold air is pouring in through the gorge, and cold air is also coming down the I-5 corridor and seeping through the nooks and crannies in the Cascades as well.
I do want to show you, then we're going to let Chris get into some specifics that he's been tracking and working on, but we want to touch on the moisture. Keep in mind, this is the radar right now. This is Arctic air that's basically dropping straight down out of Canada. So just by nature, there's really no moisture feed into this air mass. What moisture pool we're getting is basically a northwesterly flow to start coming off of the Pacific, but very limited available precip today. What you're looking at right now on the radar, all that white, that's a mix of very light snow and flurries, with the exception, we've seen some decent snow bands this morning up into the Blue Mountains, and we've seen some decent snow bands at times in the Cascades up around Mount Hood. But clearly, if you look up the north, Seattle's not showing anything. Spokane not showing anything. There's not like there's a big chunk of moisture coming our way. So any precip values outside the mountains today, and I think, and disagree with me whenever you like, Chris, I think including the Columbia River Gorge along I-84, we're just not going to see a lot of total precipitation stacking up in inches of snow today.
Yeah, no, and the other thing is, along those lines, we may actually see some sun breaks.
Well, absolutely.
I mean, it's entirely possible that the sun even comes out a little bit, and people are probably going to start to wonder around, well, why are schools out already and the sun's coming out? And what, I'm not going to speak for them, but I'm guessing that they saw the hesitancy in our forecast as to how fast does the cold move in? Is there any residual moisture? I mean, and it's going to get cold enough this afternoon in Portland that anything that was wet could get icy. I mean, it could be a flash freeze kind of thing because the cold air is coming in that quick. But the point about no moisture, I mean, the clouds are probably going to break. I don't know if maybe, is it possible that you guys could punch up the Dalles camera? Because I'm kind of curious as to what it looks like out there right now. That's our downtown Wells Fargo. Well, there's the Dalles. So what you got is the Arctic front right now blowing through the Dalles. And I mean, it looks to me like there's even some lightness in the sky up to the upper right-hand corner there.
A little bit of snow on the ground.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, obviously it's cold and windy. I mean, the Dalles, as we mentioned, is down to 17 degrees. Somebody just asked about Goldendale. You are solidly on the Arctic side of the front now. We'll get to snowfall projections, but there's no real threat of like icy weather in the gorge or points north and east of Portland. We're pretty sure that when the moisture does return, it will be solidly snow north and east of Portland and out into the gorge and and the Columbia Basin and central and eastern Oregon as well.
You want me to jump into some of our futurecast models?
Yeah,
right
go
now?
go for it. I think
We'll
folks are kind of like, okay, so when is the snow going to arrive? That's probably the first question in everybody's mind.
Let me walk over here and play TV weather guy real quick. So this is Friday. This is afternoon at 5:30 in the afternoon. What you're looking at here, the white blue colors is all snow, but I still think this is primarily flurries, light snow showers. There's at least a chance we would get a heavier snow shower that would throw down maybe some dustings of snow, but we may not even get that. This may generally be through the daylight hours today, just some flurries blowing around in the air. Eventually the cold air does come into Salem and you folks will change with some scattered rain showers to some flurries. If this is correct, it's just rain picking up later today down in Eugene. I'll play this into tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, now we've got some snow, the brighter white color starting to pick up in Portland, and we have the introduction of this salmon color. Remember, there's a Pacific low out here, and that's the only moisture feed into this entire event. That starts to feed inland down in southern and central Oregon, and then it pushes up to the north later tonight into tomorrow morning. So at 6:30 Saturday morning, the salmon color is icing, and it could be a mix of sleet and freezing rain from Eugene up into Salem. And now, during the day, I think you can tell, see how the colors get more vibrant? This is increasing moisture fields. The main event in terms of a winter storm precipitation-wise, the heavier amounts, when things really start to accumulate and get bad quick, is going to be generally the afternoon hours of tomorrow, late morning into the noon hour and then into early evening. This is showing significant icing on I-5 from Eugene, Salem, Albany, of course, and potentially all the way up into maybe the Wilsonville area. This is heavier snow bands now accumulating at 12:30 across parts of Portland up into Clark County and even over into Astoria. And here we are at 7 o'clock. Now we're getting in the last hours of what's been going on. But this has been significant icing all day from Eugene to Salem. An absolute mix is what the models are showing of sleet and snow. It could be back and forth in the one particular spot over downtown. Now remember, sleet is you've got a warmer layer in the atmosphere. It's a raindrop, and then it falls into colder air, and the raindrop in flight, if you will, as it descends, freezes into a little ice pellet, and we call that sleet. And the fact that we're going to have this mixture of snow and sleet, if this is correct, makes it difficult to tell just how much we stack up accumulation-wise. But this is all snow out in the Columbia River Gorge, clearly all snow up into the Cascades. Again, I don't think there's much of accumulation snow-wise in the gorge today, but there will be all-out winter storm conditions there potentially tomorrow. Notice the sleet comes into Newport, comes into Tillamook. Here we are Saturday night into Sunday morning. By Sunday morning, you wake up, it's pretty much all gone. Chris, you ready to break something out?
Yeah, I was gonna go ahead and punch up in the large monitor actually right behind you. We're gonna go large weather 3 take, and that's going to be the weekend snowfall potential. So this is the graph model. You and I were just looking at this a couple of minutes ago, so I'm just going to go ahead and animate this. This is what it's showing for snowfall potential, and a lot of the models are finally coming around to some agreement. I say some. Portland 3.3, Battleground 8.3, Kelso 6.7, but generally if you look at the contouring, if you don't look at the numbers, but you just look at the contouring, we're generally more snow than not, basically Clackamas County, northern Clackamas County, Multnomah County, and up into Clark and Cowlitz. The difference between the 6 and the 8 and the 3, I think really depends on, some mesoscale features and some local dynamics and whatnot. I mean, the point is that this area from Portland and points north is probably pretty solid snow. South of here, where you see like 0.9 in Scotts Mills, 0.8, that's 0.8, not 8, but 0.8 inches in Salem. It's because Salem may start off as a period of snow and then go to freezing rain. Yeah,
right? So to be clear, this is showing you snow. So it's very possible Salem has less than an inch of snow, but maybe you have an inch of ice.
And let's go switch.
And this is only showing you snow. And to back up what Chris was saying, this is also potentially showing only 3 in Portland because it's a mix of snow and ice, but 7 up in Kelso because maybe it's all snow.
And a very dry, powdery snow at that, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's go ahead and bring up the European model here that actually shows and does a pretty good job of picking up ice accumulation. Initially, the ice accumulation probably doesn't seem like too big of a deal in most of our viewing area, with the exception of maybe getting far southern Benton and Lynn counties. But
This
as we
is Saturday at 4 a.m. and now
yeah,
we're going,
now we advance through the day. I mean,
wow, Chris, wow.
yeah. So that's the Euro showing more than a half an inch of ice in Salem, and that's a grid point. But if you actually look at the contouring, I mean, there are some areas there that show greater than a half an inch of ice, and especially as you get down towards like Lebanon, you get down into Lynn County, Benton County, Corvallis, Eugene. I mean, right now that's what the Euro model is picking up on as could potentially be a severe ice storm. And
going by the legend, again, this shows significant icing, maybe up into Wilsonville, West Lynn, Oregon City area. Somebody was just, I understand several of you watching this or asking about the Lincoln City area. This does show potential icing from Clatsop County down through, here's Lincoln County and Lincoln City.
Tillamook County there.
And Tillamook right there. So
yeah.
Most of the data I've seen shows if anybody has a chance to get more snow than ice along the coast, it would be Astoria. But otherwise, it's going to be kind of an icy mixture at times from Tillamook down into Lincoln counties. And realize what you're looking at here. If you're maybe new to our area and you haven't been in an ice storm before, here's Eugene showing 1.07 inches of ice. That means if you have a tree, you have a mailbox, you have a power line, that's the depth of the ice that's collected on that. That absolutely brings power outages. Now, last time we had that bad ice storm where we had at least an inch and a quarter accumulating in parts of Westland and Estacada and down to Marion County.
And yeah.
There were rural areas, if I remember correctly, that went more than a week before the power got restored. That is a significant problem. And if I were living in one of these areas, Corvallis, Eugene, anything especially south of Salem, but maybe Salem too, where you're looking at that type of ice potential, you are the folks that you really do need to get to the grocery store today and be prepared for the fact that you might not have power in your home for a week in some cases. That's at least a possibility.
That's worst case scenario, but just prepping you that those are scenarios that we look at, right? To the north, it's more snow. To the south, it's more ice. We did get a question. Brittany just chimed in and wanted to know about travel conditions through the gorge and into the East Gorge as we get into Sunday. Sunday, the precipitation's gone. Sunday, the entire region is under that Arctic air mass, and the east wind is roaring through the gorge on Sunday. In fact, during the day on Saturday, it starts to pick up. So travel through the gorge, you're going to have blowing snow, probably no more falling snow at that point, but blowing snow, heavy snow drifts. If the snow amounts materialize to upwards of 10, 12 inches of snow in the gorge, and you're getting 50 to 80 mile an hour wind gusts out there, you're going to have 5-foot snow drifts banked up somewhere against, on I-84 somewhere. It's certainly within the realm of possibility.
Let me ask you this. When I read the National Weather Service discussion, they're talking about 50-mile-per-hour winds in the gorge Saturday into Sunday morning potentially. Our Futurecast models have been showing there's a wind spike, I think, at some point tomorrow afternoon. It showed Troutdale hitting a 60-mile-per-hour wind gust. My question to you is, Chris.
Probably bring that up. Yeah, go ahead.
My question to you is, with that type of wind, is it at least possible that ODOT would have to close the gorge because of that wind blowing trucks around in the snow? It's possible, right?
They've done it before in similar scenarios. So it certainly seems reasonable. The other thing, let's go ahead and bring that up. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch gears now on the big monitor behind us and bring up what Futurecast is showing us for wind gusts. There we go. Okay, so we go back.
And then let me load it up, and then here we go.
Yeah, so this is
that wind animation Brian Matthews will take you through here. So this is this morning. Chris mentioned we're out in Goldendale. We're already seeing the wind switch from the north to the east. See, this is the arrow bringing an east wind. This is advecting cold air off of that Arctic air mass. This is 8:30 this morning. We go through the day. This is why we think we're going to have dropping temperatures, eventually getting down to freezing at some point during the daylight hours today in Portland, because look at the east wind advecting the Arctic air into the North Valley. 36-mile-per-hour wind gust in Troutdale. The winds get stronger tonight. Here's tomorrow at 7:30, a 53-mile-per-hour wind gust in Troutdale. And look at the flow of the cold advection. 29 in Hillsboro, 32-mile-per-hour wind gust in Tillamook as well. And there was a 60-mile-per-hour wind gust that piped in there about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But boy, that is absolutely really cold weather.
Check this out.
Yeah.
The camera J, I mean, I'm going to move this out of the way because I would love for you, you're going to have to, unfortunately, probably walk in to see this. I wanted to show you the latest observation out of Underwood, which is over on the Skamania side of the river, basically directly across from Hood River. Look at that temperature drop. First of all, max east wind gust of 46 miles an hour in the last 90 minutes. Look at the temperature just fall off a cliff as the Arctic front came through. So they were, what, about 38 degrees or so at just before 6 o'clock. Underwood is now down to 18.
What time does that contour really drop sharply? That's
about 6 in the 6 o'clock hour
this morning.
Yeah. So it's just the temperature dropped like a rock as that front finally hit Underwood. So it's in Hood River. The Arctic air mass is now filtering into Hood River and just probably west of there at this point. It's really nice to have this series of observation sites out there where we can see. I'm going to go check in Crown Point just for kicks right now and see what our wind's doing.
And while you're doing that, Chris, let me interrupt for a second and go. On the back side of this, we're dry Sunday, but then as the atmosphere starts to warm up, we get a temperature inversion building Monday, Tuesday into Wednesday. Temperature inversions with east winds almost always fire those extreme Crown Point winds, which means I'm talking 60, 70 mile per hour stuff, maybe the start of the week next week at the Vista House in Crown Point. But that means there's a lingering potential, at least into East Multnomah and East Clark County, of strong east winds with this cold air in place. It'll eventually be more of a strong east wind near the gorge proximity itself, but that's something that could linger for you folks, again, in Camas, Washougal, Troutdale, Gresham, Sunday, Monday, into Tuesday of next week. You got what you're looking for, sir?
I saw Crown Point is still getting a west wind. So the front, at least at the surface, has not gotten through the gorge just yet, but it's working its way through the gorge. So we have a west wind at Crown Point and a howling east wind out at Underwood and Hood River right now.
That's some people joining us. I live up in Cowlitz County, Kelso, Longview, Castle Rock, up in that areas, north of Woodland. And I think the headline for you folks right now, if you look at what the models are outputting in terms of sleet, snow, etc., there's reason to believe that nearly all of the Cowlitz County precipitation, which will be picking up again overnight tonight and especially Sunday morning, will be snow.
There you go.
And some of the models are outputting, Chris has got it here. So we've got 8 inches northern Clark County battleground, 7, maybe 8 inches up in Kelso, Longview. So once you get farther north away from the outflow of the Columbia River where the winds are blowing in, when you get north of the Columbia River, farther and farther up into Cowlitz County, you have a better chance of picking up just snow. And if you get just snow, there's enough moisture for those 8-inch events on the ground. Now, it's probably going to be absolutely rotten snowball making snow because it's going to be so dry, it's not going to stick together really well.
Yeah, one other thing I want to point out, I don't think this is picking it up really well, but I guess it kind of is. It kind of is. The northern gradient of this is really tight, and what I mean by that is that there's going to be somewhere, and likely in the northern part of our viewing area, there's going to be a very sharp cutoff between, you see Kelso at 6.7, they're in the 6 to 12 contour here. 12 is probably a little high because I don't think there's enough moisture to produce that much snow. But within a very narrow area, somewhere in the northern part of our area, and it's probably going to be Cowlitz County getting out towards the southwest Washington coast, there's going to be a sharp cutoff from 6-7 inches of snow to 2 inches of snow to not much. I mean, Seattle is not going to see, Tacoma is not going to, I mean, they're going to see some flurries today, but not much, right?
Yeah, Seattle, I just checked, Chris, Seattle's forecast, all dry, mid-20s tomorrow, all dry.
And probably sunny.
Yeah, they're showing at least partly cloudy skies.
So, there's going to be a very, very, very tight, sharp cutoff. And we're still, it's 8:48 on a Friday morning. I mean, the reality is we're still 24 hours away from where this low actually forms.
Yes.
And where it tracks. And so there's still some wiggle room left or right here, left or right here. And models have been trending and are finally they're not waffling as much. They're not going back and forth. They're zeroing in. So that's good to see, which highlights, ice threat Salmon points north, probably mostly snow Portland, and then a sharp cutoff to the north. But 25 miles either way right now is still in question. Let me,
if our producer Brittany can tell me again what you just asked me in my ear, Brittany. Asking about people traveling to the airport. Well, you know, in terms of, I think you're fine traveling to the airport today. I think you're fine traveling to, if we're talking about PDX specifically, I think you're fine traveling to the airport here in the Portland metro area this evening. Tomorrow, if you have to go somewhere tomorrow and you want to beat the storm, the earlier and earlier you go, the better. The later in the morning, it's going to slowly get worse and worse. And by the noon hour, if not before, it's really bad out there.
Yeah, why don't we bring up just the latest run of Futurecast?
Okay.
I'll bring up the graph here. I can do that right.
You know what?
Let's do it on your system because I think you've got it in there.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and.
I did want to point out when we were looking at that snow, and I think we mentioned this, people were asking about the gorge. There's reason to believe this is just snow in the gorge tomorrow, but heavy snow at times with the gusting winds. We did talk about that. Could be dangerous driving because of the combination of snow and low visibility, blizzard conditions in the gorge with 50+ mile-per-hour winds. It's just all snow along the east slopes of the Cascades over into central Oregon and out farther to the east. That's just snow. The Blues, just snow. But absolutely, I think there could be some icing mixing in if you're traveling on 26 up the west slopes of the Cascades, up through Welch's Rhododendron, up to Government Camp. There probably will be some ice mixing in there until you get up in elevation a little bit.
You're going with the NAM here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I like the resolution, and I didn't see a ton of differences between the several models that I looked at. But again, this is our Futurecast. If you haven't seen it, this is 5:30 today. The blue-white is snow. It looks like during the daylight hours today, it's mostly just flurries, light snow showers. I mean, maybe there's something that pops and we get a dusting of snow. I think that'd be the worst case scenario during the day today. This is showing it's just rain in Eugene, but eventually snow in Salem. Now, again, the moisture source is out here in the Pacific. It starts pumping in moisture down here along the central and southern areas of our state and then migrates it northward during the day. Here's 6:30 in the morning. This is the salmon color. That is significant icing. Eugene, Salem, even into parts of the southern Portland metro area, maybe all the way up into Lake Oswego, for example. This is snow from near the Columbia River, just snow up into Longview. And then during the day, if you look carefully, you saw in the Portland City Center, the model kind of mixes it back and forth. This kind of sleet mixed with snow. And because of that, it's tough to tell how much we stack up on the ground. Most of the weather models are putting out upwards of 1/2 of an inch of liquid available moisture. You turn that into snow and the models are going, well, if it's all snow, especially in parts of much of southwest Washington, and if it's all snow out in parts of Washington County when you get out farther away from the gorge and maybe even up into parts of Columbia County, that's enough to produce 8 inches of snow. But if you get into downtown Portland where we think it'll be a mix of sleet and snow, now all of a sudden it's just as bad driving wise, but maybe you've only got 3-4 inches on the ground because you've got sleet mixed in. Again, when you get down into Salem, especially Albany, Eugene, there's concern this could be a major ice storm. Again, this is all snow in the gorge, all snow out across eastern areas. And here we are Sunday with the storm moving through. It just had in my ear somebody asking about Estacada. Let me back it up right here. And let's go back into tomorrow.
There could be some sleet and freezing rain mixed in Estacada.
Yeah, we're out here in Clackamas County. I would say the best bet is, to me, that's some sort of a mix of sleet and snow, and certainly covered, and it's going to be so cold. There's a point it gets so cold that you know, ODOT's out there plowing and PBOT and putting things down, but there's a point where you get so cold they can't get the ice off of the road. You just can't.
Yeah,
we're going to be that cold.
I think the accepted temperature for, you know, salt kind of not working, not being really real effective is about 20 degrees.
And we're going to be there.
So when you start getting below 20 degrees, salt, you know, going back to our growing up days in the Midwest and back east, you know, you get the salt down as the first snowflakes fly, and that gives road crews a chance to not allow that ice to harden up and form on the road and form a glacier, right? But if the road crews don't get out and get the salt down on the road as the flakes are starting to fall, we're going to wind up with glaciers, and this is known from years and years of decades of experience.
So to me, driving tomorrow anywhere from late morning on, anything that has a mixture of sleet and snow with temperatures hitting 20 degrees, it's going to be a widespread just sheet of ice. You think that's a relatively fair statement, Chris, generally speaking? By getting into the noon hour tomorrow, especially the people that have a mixture of ice to snow, it's just going to be a widespread sheet of ice on roadways with temperatures around 20 degrees. Maybe there's some saving grace if you're up here in southwest Washington to Longview and you get to a spot where it's just been snow. It's going to be very dry snow, so it's fluffy, not snowball snow. Maybe there's some saving grace there that I don't know. I mean, eventually that's going to stack up on the roads too, but it would take a little while because at first it's going to be blowing around a little bit, kind of like cotton candy.
We know we've got a live, Director Brian Matthews actually had a nice live shot for us to take us up to the mountain. This is on Furwood Road, by the way. This is just east of Sandy. This is up at about 1,100 feet.
Okay. And
I brought this up earlier today that, sometimes we say, hey, you're going over the passes, you need, well, first off, if you're going over the passes today, you need chains or traction tires. That's a requirement. That's a legal requirement. The other thing is this is literally just east of Sandy, about 2-3 miles east of Sandy. Furwood Road, that camera is just above 1,000. I think it's about 1,100 feet. The point is that we say, oh, it's snowy up in the passes, but your drive up to the mountain now is probably 30 or 40 miles in snow and on snow-covered road. It's not just getting up to government camp and you got to go over the pass and you get a little bit of snow. This is a long period of over the next couple of days that you're going to be driving, if you have to drive that way between here and Central Oregon, that you will be encountering that. Also, we haven't talked much about Central Oregon, but to our viewers over in Crook County, Prineville County, maybe you're going over to Sun River or over in Wasco County, those areas are all snow, significant snow, 2 to 8 inches a good bet, windy, winter storm conditions. And through the day tomorrow. Yeah,
and again, tomorrow is going to be the bullseye of the storm. If you can avoid traveling through the gorge up over the mountains, well, in most parts of our state, period, tomorrow's a good day to stay home. I want to take you to some of the bullet headlines that we had on our sunrise show this morning. This is Saturday's forecast. Again, the bullseye of when the precipitation really gets going. Portland, a mix of snow and sleet accumulation. Anywhere from 3 to 8 inches, depending on how much sleet or how much just all snow you have. East winds 20 to 40, gusting to 50 or maybe even stronger, especially out near the gorge. The wind chill is bitterly cold, the type of cold we don't get that often, 0 to plus 10. I mean, that's, you want a face mask if you're going to have to be outdoors tomorrow. And of course, gloves and all of your extremities covered, as they say. Storm ends Saturday night. That's been a very high confidence point with the storm ending quickly Saturday night. And then you get down into the south and mid valleys, Salem, Albany, Eugene, Woodburn, heavy sleet to freezing rain. Our models are showing while there could be a little bit of snow at times, this is mostly straight ice of a combination of sleet and freezing rain. Heavy icing, depths up to 1.25 inches. Albany down to Eugene especially could be really bad, knocking out power potentially for days for some areas. Winds won't be as bad. You're away from the gorge, northeast 10 to 20. And again, down here, the storm will be ending Saturday night as well.
Yeah,
so we've had this in years past where you really we have the ice storm that we're covering here at KGW and parts of the valley, and then we have the snowstorm that we're covering, and then we have some spots that are a little bit back and forth.
One of the questions that Brittany was just relaying us is when are we going to thaw out? So there's the other thing about this storm, the old it's just it'll snow and then we'll let it melt the next day. We're probably, once we get below freezing, which would be about what time today? Noon, 2?
Could be as early as noon, potentially.
Noon, 2 o'clock here in Portland. Yeah. We are not going to get above freezing until Tuesday afternoon.
Take a look at our 7-day. Brian, we just popped that up. We haven't even looked at this yet. So here's what Chris is taking.
These are Sunday morning, that's actually near a record low. Monday morning, these are near record lows for Portland.
You think we could be colder, sir?
I mean, for the pockets that don't get exposed to the wind, sure. Yeah, the heat radiates out and you get, there could be, and especially if we get deep snowpack too. Because, I mean, we're still, some of the modeling has yet to pick up on how much snow is actually on the ground. Because that matters if you have a deep snowpack and a clear sky, that just reflects all the sun's energy right out, and so that allows temperatures to really, really drop at night. So that's entirely possible that these numbers could be lower in pockets that don't have the east wind. But the point is, to the folks asking, when are we going to thaw out? We go below freezing this afternoon at some point, sometime between noon and 6. Portland's below freezing. In that 6-hour window, we're below freezing. We do not then get above freezing until Tuesday. And just real quick.
Kind of a weak system, but it could bring something.
I mean, that could be, that we're cold enough on Tuesday night and Wednesday morning that there could be a freezing rain, something to worry about until we finally moderate. And long-range models go out, beyond this. This could be our one shot of winter weather this year.
Yeah,
could be.
I'm told we've got
Timberline
folks up there on the mountain. They're obviously getting fresh snow. The wind gust at 6,000 feet.
Let me go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and bring up the.
Have been popping to
here.
40 plus up there.
Well,
You can see the visibility is not great as you stare out over the day parking lot at Timberline. Again, the winds are gusting to 40 or better.
Mount Hood Meadows west gust in the last little while to 65 miles an hour. That was the peak gust, excuse me. No, max gust, 94 miles an hour. That had to be last night. That's at Meadows.
Meadows right now, base area is reporting 25 degrees. Timberline is reporting a temperature currently of 17.
Mount Hood Meadows now gusting to 65.
Yeah, that's vicious weather.
That's still out of the west. Interesting. The max gust though was 94, and that happened in the wee hours of this morning.
Yeah, I'm telling you though, I mean, tomorrow is the day to stay home if you can. Combination of snow and wind in the gorge, up over the Cascades, what will become just a total sheet of ice on all area roadways here in the North Valley and on I-5 going all the way down to Eugene. Brittany, do we have some more information that viewers are asking about? Brittany's our producer.
And by the way, the wind up at Timberline now, max gust in the last 24 hours, 57 miles an hour. Peak gust just recently 38 miles an hour at Timberline. So it's gusting to 38 to 40 out of the. It's still west, by the way. It's still a west wind at Timberline.
People are asking about next week. Just in general, Brittany? What do you mean just asking about next week? Just in general? Well, okay, well, Linda, we're looking at the 7-day right now. Brian will pop it back up on the board. And again, the story is dry weather Sunday, Monday, Tuesday has been really consistent. Chris mentioned this a moment ago. We're not really warming above freezing until we get into Tuesday. So it's a lot of the roads are going to be an icy mess until that happens. Then that system on Wednesday is kind of a weak system, but it could bring us some wintry weather before it transitions
13th, 14th, 15th, 14th and 15th.
Into warmer weather, 40 in the afternoon. Yeah.
Yeah, those will be record lows.
The coast, we got people the coast. The coast we covered a little bit earlier. It looks like Astoria there's a Cannon Beach looking, and Chris mentioned this, maybe some breaks in the clouds today. There's Cannon Beach live, beautiful. The coast included in winter storm conditions as we get rolling into the weekend. Models showing there's some periods of snow off the beach in Astoria, but when you get into Tillamook County and especially Lincoln County and then Lane County, the bet is mostly the models are showing a mixture of freezing rain and sleet. But to be clear, the winter storm conditions with sticking freezing precipitation does include all of the coastline from Lincoln County northward and Lane County actually northward up into Clatsop and up through the Long Beach Peninsula. Yeah. And the Coast Range is going to be an absolute mess. That could be a mixture of snow and at least on the east slope of the Coast Range, it could be some icing mixing in.
Yeah,
there
well,
too.
let's go ahead and I can bring up that
yeah,
icing.
Coast Range.
Again, this is the European ice. We've imported our ice from Europe.
Oh yeah, come walk us
the
through
European
this,
model.
Yeah.
This is the Euro model, and this shows some of the ice accumulation. And right now, the Euro continues to significant icing along the Tillamook coast and the Lincoln County coast.
Up and down 101, right?
Up and down 101.
Wow.
It's just, I mean, with the east wind driving temperatures quite cold there.
I like this contour, and let me point this out. I think this is kind of cool to look at. So right here, see there's nothing on the map. Again, Chris is just plotting ice here. So what's not showing up in color is snow. So here's the snow in the gorge, and here's the outflow of the gorge blowing snow up into southwest Washington, and then out parts of much of Washington County particularly.
Probably get a little upsloping
there too. Yeah, that's just straight Arctic air blowing. But now the model's saying, wait a minute, we got this specific low bringing in warmer air aloft that's feeding up over the Arctic air, and that's why when you get away from the gorge, the depth of the cold air becomes more shallow, and now you got icing taking place where this is blowing. So it's almost like a wedge. You got cold air keeping the depth of the cold. You've got cold air blowing through the gorge, keeping the depth of the cold air very thick, and it's all snow. You get away from the gorge, and then the depth of the cold air starts to get more shallow, and now you introduce icing, and that's what that's showing for you quite nicely.
That looks rough. That looks really bad.
Yeah,
actually.
no doubt.
That's.
We've been going for 34 minutes. Brian,
any more questions right now, or do we wrap it and see you tomorrow morning?
Do we want to show the set? Brian, can you pop? Well, we have to switch.
We could do that.
Yeah, you want to switch the monitor real quick?
He's got it.
Brian, you got the 7-day forecast as we say goodbye again. Just to clarify, the meat of the moisture with this storm develops late overnight tonight It's precipitating and it's accumulating a mixture of freezing rain, sleet, and snow, depending on where you are in the valley, throughout the day tomorrow on Saturday. And then the storm quickly blows out Saturday overnight, but temperatures don't get above freezing until at some point Tuesday, which means a sheet of ice covering much of our area is going to continue. Any final thoughts, Chris?
It's just, yeah, we'll wait and see. I mean, there's still, and there's still is some uncertainty in terms of amounts,
sure,
right? And ultimately where that sharp cutoff is to the north and where that ice sleet cutoff is to the south, and then ultimately how much.
Chief Meteorologist Matt Savino, I want to say, will be here later today.
Yep.
I'm in on Sunrise tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock here in KGW TV.
I'll be in on Sunday morning
at 6 a.m. on Sunrise. All right. Until then, we bid you wise decisions, safe traveling.
And put some salt down.
Yeah, and we hope you have a good day.